You're listening to the Coach's Journey podcast, exposing the struggles and celebrating the successes in the life of coaches who are action takers and creating authentic impact in today's world. Whether you're just starting out, expanding your reach, or exploding your impact, you're in the right place right now. Stay tuned and be sure to subscribe to this podcast. Now, here are your hosts of the Coach's Journey podcast.
I love that you reminded me of something that Earl Nightingale, he shared the story, and he was talking about money and being rich and how he would always hear stories. Usually people who are at a lower socioeconomic level, these stories and these, he called them alibis, that rich people were this or they were negative in this way and that way. And that might be true. Some of them, that's true, but they're alibis. They are some very subjective experiences. And we know that negative news spreads much faster and much farther than positive news ever could, because our brain is always protecting us and other people around us. We're looking out for what could harm us, especially if it's coming from somebody close to us who we might consider as a credible source. We'll take it as a fact. Mm-hmm. But it might be, like you said, you might not know that the details of what happened in those scenarios. Like, for example, in my collaborations, there are a lot of negative aspects of it. I mean, we've seen a fair share of that in CMC. It's not all rosy. In fact, it's actually quite challenging to build something together with other people. And I think that's the primary reason I don't think people go towards it, because once you get into it, you see how challenging it is to kind of make a few people's mind merge together and work towards a common goal. It actually requires a lot. There's trust that needs to build, there's rapport, there's understanding each other's communication style, there's getting used to each other's behavior and skill sets and habits, there's setting up accountability. So many things have to happen for something to start to run smoothly. And that's a complex process. And so initially it goes very slow. But what most people don't take into account is that just because something goes slow initially doesn't mean it won't go much faster later. In fact, it could exponentially go faster later because you have that many people. And so understanding, like, whatever accounts that you hear from other people and even in our own experience, are we focusing more on the negative aspects of a collaboration? Or can we kind of pull out the lessons from whatever partnership or whatever collaboration we've had and see how we can make it work? And personally, for me, here are the reasons. Beyond the fact that I'm kind of intrinsically driven to go towards this, I see the advantages in terms of how I've designed my life and how I want it to go in the future. So primarily, I don't want to have to work all the time, to be honest. I want to build businesses. I want to create an impact in the world, but I don't want to be the person who works 100 hours a week or whatever. And that's actually a very common thing for many entrepreneurs. It's not an uncommon thing for entrepreneurs to work anywhere from 70 to 80 to 100 hours. Yeah. And so just based on my values, I don't want to have to do that, because I'm also building a life. I'm not just, yes, there's a role I have to make a difference, to do something that matters to me, to contribute in a bigger way. But there's also my role in my life as a leader in my family and my community. That's just as important for me. And if I'm spending most of my time in that, while that will still impact, because I'm bringing in resources and experience and other things, but I'm not there. And if you're not there, you might as well, like, you won't have any influence, you won't have any connection. And people just grow in their own way, whether it's your kids, your spouse, your family members, friends, or whoever that is part of your community. So for me, it's also a design thing, that if I'm going to do these big things and not put all my time bandwidth, then I need to leverage two things. One is people, the other one is systems. And essentially, that's what business is. So how can how can I get connected with the right people, and how can I build business systems around it? So it lowers my bandwidth involvement, but the impact is much more scalable. It's much, much higher. So if you are thinking about creating a business where you have different roles and responsibilities and you want to focus on those, then collaboration might be a better path for you, and we can talk about different aspects of it. better path for you long term versus just, hey, short term, let's do this. And if that's not the case, and if you can work 80 hours per week, you can definitely build a business if you spend that much time and effort and energy on it. You can definitely build a business on your own, multiple businesses on your own, and you'll be just fine. Even then, you will need employees and other people, but that's a different. But the kind of collaboration I'm talking about is how can you get started, or at least at some point get involved with other people who have complementary skill sets, or grow or scale your business in the right direction that way. So before I go into that, any thoughts here?
You use the term leverage, and I'm sitting here, how does leverage and collaboration differ, and how do you see them as similar?
So if the collaboration is working, then you can create leverage. But if it's not working, you're putting in probably more time and effort into it. So my idea of leverage in collaboration is that, are you able to, for example, I was in Denver for a week. The thing that I was really happy about, and I was counting, is that I didn't hear a peep from CMC for the most part. I just had one meeting with one of the coaches who needed my support, but that was my project. But other than that, for example, Jeff and Daniel were running actually a major thing. They were doing the chain launch and they were doing a bunch of stuff. And I think you were away too. So I wonder how it was from your experience. I felt really good about that things didn't fall apart just because we were away doing stuff. To me, that's leverage in the sense that the business is still running. You don't need to be there all the time. Part of it is systems, but part of it is we know that people are going to be there to support our community members. And whatever challenges come, they will deal with it. So that to me was very amazing. And my idea of life is that I want to be able to go away for a month, not have to worry about my businesses. And while you can hand over a business to somebody, let's say a manager or somebody, that's possible as well. But I like the fact that we're equal partners, or we're collaborators at some level, and we have a sense of responsibility towards it. In that sense, I like that model better than, hey, I'm just handing it off to a manager who's looking at it as just as a job. And I'm not saying you can't find managers who will have a higher work ethic. But just that's what I mean. And also beyond that, it allows me, because my time is not spent there, I spent a good week trying to build connections and relationships and building the other aspect of my business. And that's a collaboration as well with other people. That was very valuable time for me. And so if I didn't have that, more than likely I'd be sitting there trying to figure out what to do with CMC while I was there, or just completely shut it down, or not even worry about it, which is probably not a good model. So that's kind of how I look at it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to pull out, I think, a couple of the most important things that you were saying from my perspective for the listener. And that is that a really good collaboration is one where there's leverage. And so however many people are in the collaboration, let's say there's 3, that there's not, a lot of duplication of efforts, that somebody's skill set of the first person is complementing then the skill set of the second person, which is complementing the skill set of the third person. And it's this idea that, the 3 of them are going to be able to accomplish more over time than each of them individually, because there's a synergy. And so part of collaboration is leveraging, but also recognizing within that collaboration that you are providing value to other people in a way that they don't maybe have already, as well as they are providing value for you. So it's a relationship where people are serving each other. It's not a one-sided directional relationship. And so as we're thinking about, well, what would a collaboration look like? Who would I collaborate with? Those are really important factors to think about. And part of how my mind has been groomed over the last year or so around collaborations is very much in the investing space around large multifamily investing, because that's the culture of that type of investing, that one person really doesn't have the necessary skill set or bandwidth to be able to find, buy, and manage a really large investment property. And so there's the culture of collaboration. And so it's really interesting hearing about how people talk about it, because I think there's been a lot of value I've gotten out of that context conversation that I'm able to apply in other areas of my life. And they talk about things like finding, what are you good at? Then finding somebody else to fill in the gaps. Like that's the kind of person you want to find to collaborate with or to partner with. Because if you have the same kind of strong skill sets as they do, well, then there's a gap left of, something to be done, or they'll be fighting over who gets to do the thing that we're both good at. And so there's a lot of intentionality around how you pick your partners, which I think is the wisdom that I was missing 16 years ago when my sister was like, this horrible thing happened. I'm never going to do that again. Was like, oh, okay. I'm sorry that happened. And what lessons can I learn from that? And get more in depth about that and learn, okay, well, this is, make sure you learn this first. Make sure, you vet them, in this way first, and getting more granular around how we approach collaborations rather than just writing them off because of a bad story or again, going back to the assumptions or some assumptions we have. So I think that the really strong question to ask ourselves is, what kind of collaboration makes the most sense right now in my business, in my coaching business? Where could I bring somebody in where we can mutually provide value to each other to be able to help both of us grow? Or, and just kind of looking for those opportunities. And if you're looking for those opportunities, the reticular activating system in our brain, when we're looking for something, we tend to find it because our brain is now like looking for that everywhere. So if you ask yourself that, where can I find my next collaboration? I'll bet you within a couple of weeks, you're probably going to have a whole list of possibilities to then start to explore and unpack with people.
Yeah, I love that. And incidentally, I learned the idea of collaboration more from real estate investors as well. And I've been fortunate enough to watch them for the past 4+ years. And I've seen ones who kind of succeeded very fast, very quickly. They were able to scale. And ones who they're stuck. Like it's been like 2-3 years. And it was actually very simple for me to support many of them because I knew where the problem was. And I would directly go towards, so how many people have you connected since you started the program? How do you communicate with people? Who do you reach out to? And all I have to do is ask a few questions. You find out that almost like a good portion, I would say a majority portion have a challenge with working with other people because they have some kind of pain around it.
Yeah.
And they have some kind of story around it that, oh, this happened in my past partnership. Oh, this happened because of my brother, or my friend had this partner, and they don't even realize it because the story is not clear. It's not, at this point, it's just part of their thought process to avoid that because they've associated an emotional pain. In psychology, we call that secondary conditioning. Is that all you have to do is see somebody close to you in pain and they react a certain way, you might pick up on that very fast if it's strong enough. And so it was actually very simple. And for the first year or two, I just watched for the most part, and I did my coaching, but I just watched some people who didn't have much of a skill set in real estate, to be honest. They were just more interested, but they were really good at connecting with other people. And they would come in and just within a few months, you will see that they are part of a GP, and like a deal with 200 units, 100 units, even 300 units. And they, like, when they came on the call, because I remember a few of them, they would be like, I just listened to the podcast like 2 weeks ago. This is so amazing, and this and that. I'm going to go connect with everybody. Versus another case, which is the more common case, like, hey, I've been listening to the podcast for a whole year, 2 years, 3 years. I've been thinking about this stuff and I'm learning and I'm excited to know. And they get focused on information download.
Yeah.
So they come into the program, they just listen to the videos and the training, and they over and over, they show up to the meetings and the training sessions, but it never translates towards them doing anything. And I'll give you an example. One client I work with, he was scared to, like, they would do underwriting on these deals. He was scared to finish an underwriting process because he was scared he was going to make a mistake. Now, the problem was that because he wasn't connecting with enough people, he was only looking at it from his perspective. And he wasn't even sharing it. So when I asked him, like, do you do underwriting? He's like, the normal response was, yeah, I've done so many, underwrote so many deals. It wasn't until I dug deeper, found out that he hadn't finished most of them. And then I'm like, so when you get scared, what do you do with that? It's like, nothing. I just freeze and I just focus on something else. I'm like, have you considered bringing that up with other investors to see what their perspective is on? Now I could tell he had trust issues there, and I could tell he hadn't connected with them. But as soon as that was kind of opened up and he started reaching out and connecting, I think within it was 2 weeks, he already had a team. It was just so funny. Going for about 6, 7, 8 months, he wasn't connecting with anybody and was afraid to do this stuff. And I would say that's a very normal human thing. Like,
Yeah.
we will look at information from our perspective. If it doesn't make sense to us, we can't make sense of it. We feel afraid. We'll just get stuck in our head. Coaches do the same thing. I did that for years. And I know enough coaches to know that they will sit there for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years after they've gotten certified. And they haven't actually taken action towards developing their business. Not because business is complicated, but because they're just stuck in their head and their own emotions and their own thoughts. And they haven't connected to enough coaches to get more perspective. And the ones who they've connected to, they're in the same exact space as they are. And they're kind of confirming each other's problems. And I did that too. So understanding that we might have pain around this, and understanding, are we around enough people to understand the business, what's actually happening in the world? Not based on whatever models and theories and statistics were given, but based on actually coaches going out there and trying things and seeing the live feedback, which is what we do in Coaching Mastery community. I think that's much more valuable than you just basing it on somebody's marketing model of, oh, this will work if you do this. But when you look at it, the person had tried it that way about 10 years ago.
Yeah, you bring up, I think, what is probably one of the most universal challenges around collaboration. And that is that collaboration is at its most basic form a relationship. And each of us have been burned in relationships in one form or fashion, whether it's intimate relationship, whether it's familial, whether it's business, or whatever it is. We've all been burned. We all have baggage. We all have things that we're working through. And are we, or will we, let those past challenges continue to impact us and color our decisions in a way that is ultimately maybe not serving our best future, the desires that we have for our life, our business? Are we going to let those impact us in a way that's challenging us negatively? And quite frankly, that's something I would say to every client I've ever worked with. So we are no different than our clients, right? Like, right. So how can we continue to challenge ourselves as coaches to level up on our own healing and our own health around our relationships, so that we can, continue to best serve our clients by overcoming our own things? I mean, I even said a month ago, and I think Faisal was there, I was like, I've been burned by employees, like, big time. And I still have some pain around that. And I'm like, I don't want to have any more employees right now. Nope. Don't want to manage people. Don't want to do it. And that's my own issue I've got to get through. And could that be holding me back? If I latch onto that stance, that pain, and don't work through it, is that something that could hold me back over time? It very well could be. I could be missing out on some opportunities. So we all have a way to level up and to work through things. So I challenge you, as you're listening to this, what is some of that pain that you can identify and start to work through, so that you are not automatically preventing yourself from seeing some of these really valuable collaborative opportunities.
You're listening to the Coach's Journey podcast.